Hi, it's Jamie Smart here with another Clarity Pro case study interview. And I'm joined here by someone who I've known a long time. Carl and I go way back. He's a sports coach and a men's coach. And as you're going to hear, that whole thing of getting his message out there is part of what I want to be talking to Carl about today. So welcome, Carl. It's great to have you with us.
Great to be here, Jamie. Thanks very much for inviting me on.
And I just realized I don't think I said your full name, Karl Walkinshaw. So Karl Walkinshaw, it's great to have you with us. And Karl, where I'd love you to start is just by telling us a little bit about the nature of your work and what first sparked your interest in the principles behind clarity.
So yeah, thanks, Jamie. So I work as a men's coach primarily. So that's the work that I do. And I do that to transform men that have gone through a difficult time. So it could be that they've gone through a divorce or relationship breakup or lost a job, or they're looking to create a new chapter of their lives. And primarily that's the work that I do. But I also do sports coaching. So I coach American football, and I have done for very many years. And so I coach young men at university level, and I also coach the Great Britain national football team. And nice. So that's a great privilege to be able to do that as well. And I use the principles in all of my work that I do. I first came across the principles because of you, my man. It was like 2000 yeah, exactly. I think I'd known you since 2007 and 2006-07 when I first started doing coaching and coach training, and you were running an organization called Salad, which was like one of the, it was a great NLP company at the time. And so I was following you, and then you went through a big transition in 2009-10. I mean, I'm telling your story really, but that's what sparked my interest in the principles was, wow, why has Jamie Smart taken this big, change in direction? And at the time, my mum had just died in 2010, January 2010, my mum died. And it was a massive milestone moment for me. It was like, wow, what am I doing with my life? There were some really big kind of fundamental questions coming in. And I went along to a weekend of yours. I think she had died in the January, and I went along to a weekend of yours in the February. And it was called Effortless Evolution. I think it was called, Jamie. Hopefully you can hear me okay. And
I remember it well.
Yeah, Effortless Evolution.
I remember it very well indeed.
And that's when I came across Sydney Banks for the first time, because you showed a video of Sydney Banks, and it was the first time I'd heard him speak, and it had a really profound effect on me, actually, and I started to kind of, there was a big relief actually hearing him speak. And as a lot of kind of shifts internally for me, and I kind of relaxed and started to laugh. And I remember laughing in this group that we were in at the time and thinking, Carl, what are you laughing at? This is almost embarrassing. Like, I was laughing quite hard. And it was because of the relief of hearing the fact that, you didn't need to be so stressed out and that everything was going to be okay. And it was Sydney Banks' Hawaii lecture. And it had a real profound effect. I remember you came over to me and said, Carl, because you saw me laughing, and you said, Carl, you have to understand Sydney Banks, he's pure spirit, he's speaking from the heart and this kind of thing. And I was like, yeah, I get it, Jamie, I really get it. It was a big watershed moment. And a few years later, I joined the Clarity coaching program with you and did a full year where I kind of immersed myself in the three principles. So that's how I got into this whole area.
And Karl, what's the nature of the work that you're doing with men and with sports teams, and how you're sharing the principles with them? What form is that taking?
It takes a range of different forms. I mean, for the in terms of the men's work that I do, it's very much presence-based coaching. So it's not about a bunch of tools and techniques. The work that I do with men is really about connecting with them on a much deeper level and looking at some of the ways in which they show up in the world. And that requires you to drop into a certain state yourself if you want to deeply connect with somebody. And so the work that I've done around the principles, which was this dropping out of a lot of men, when you coach them, are kind of in their heads and they want to have either want to have an intellectual debate with you, or they suffer from stress and anxiety, or, they're not really in touch with themselves in terms of their own, what they genuinely feel and their emotional kind of connect.
Karl, I think we lost
You still there,
internet
Jamie?
connection.
I may have
I'm
lost.
still here. I don't know if you can hear me. I think we lost internet connection there for a moment.
We did, sorry. Yeah, so I don't know whether that's you or me, but it's probably me, that you've been on the internet for the last 5 days and nothing's happened. So
it's just one of those. We will persevere. So sorry, you were talking about that a lot of guys, they're kind of up in their heads or worried or anxious and that sort of thing. And so to coach them, you need to kind of head into that more present and connected space with them.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's something which the principles has really helped me to be able to do. So when you have a guy come to you and he is stressed out, anxious, or the kind of a lot of beliefs around who he is and what he should be doing, is to be as present as possible to his transformation. And so it's really the principles and the clarity work that I did with you over that year is really fundamental in terms of getting the transformations and shifts in the coaching clients that I see. And just trusting that they're able to do that for themselves, that, you don't have to, as a coach, be working 90 miles an hour to always get them the objective. In fact, that's kind of the reason they come to me often, is because they've been doing that already. They've been already on the treadmill, they've been spinning their wheels, and they've kind of got to a point where they've had a great deal of outward success, but they don't feel a lot of kind of inner fulfillment. And so the job is to kind of reconnect them back to who they really are. So that's the work, and that's the work that I encourage men to do, and that's why the principles is such a big part of what I do.
Yeah, I love it. And Karl, you obviously you went through Clarity certification a few years ago, but you're a founder member of Clarity Pro, and one of the first things we did in Clarity Pro when we started a year ago was, every month we do our group laser coaching session. So I'm coaching people at the front of the group, and you were one of the first people to get coached. And I thought that the topic we were talking about it's such a universal for so many people. So I was wondering if you'd be willing to talk about that experience of being in that Clarity Pro laser coaching session, and then what had taken you to that, and then what happened as a result of that.
Yeah, so I'd always been like a bit of a secret in terms of the coaching. I'd never kind of come out, and said, "Oh, I'm doing men's coaching." And I'd always got coaching clients through referral and just through networks that I'd built through sport, essentially. And there came a point where I was increasingly called to kind of broaden my network, but I'd not really created any social media content around it. And I was called to kind of make a series of videos and a series of Facebook videos and put them on Facebook. And I had a lot of thinking around this, like a lot of nerves, a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress. And I'd found myself kind of just needing to speak to someone. Well, speak to you, to be honest. I'd selected you to talk to really get clear on what the barrier was and moving forwards with this. So we had that session as part of Clarity Pro. And I think it was only maybe half an hour, 40 minutes, but that made a tremendous difference. So I'd come into the session, and I remember saying to you, look, I'm literally fearful about putting stuff out there, because it's almost like it's a change in my identity. It's like I shift from just purely a sports coach to now I'm doing men's work, and I'm talking about masculinity, and I'm talking about the myth of the lone wolf. And I'm making, I want to make this series of videos, Jamie, but I'm kind of crapping myself around what my social circle might think of me. I remember the first thing you said was, because I said, I don't want to be judged, Jamie. And you said, well, they're definitely going to judge you. And I was like, it was like, one of the things that that the principles does, I guess, is like close the gap between, you know, the fantasy that you have in your head about how things actually work and how they really work, and you always want to point out and close that gap. So, you know, you didn't bullshit me. It was like, yeah, they're going to judge you, Karl. It's like, so what are you going to do about that? Are you going to do them, or are you not going to do them? Because you're going to get judged anyway. And it was like, oh yeah, I am going to get judged. So there was an insight there that you're always constantly being judged. So it was like, you may as well do the work you're being called to do. And it was like, this had gone on for so long in my life. It was like, come on already, just get the stuff out there. It was like, and so I did. I made, after that session, which was extremely powerful, I had the insight around the fact that, you know, this is a calling for me. This is something which I'm supposed to be doing. And my thinking's kind of getting in the way of this. So let's get out of my own way and just produce the stuff and get it out there. So I did. I got the first video out, and I made a series of videos over that month. And they were, I was astounded by the impact that they had. They were shared, you know, dozens of times, and they got thousands of views. And I've only got maybe 1,500 friends on my entire Facebook wall. You know, I don't have a big social network, at least at that time. And they got shared thousands of times. I mean, I think some of the videos got up to like 14,000, 15,000 views, and people loved them. So
brilliant.
There was a desire for them, and I just needed to get out on my own way. And that was the insight I'd had on the call.
Well, and the thing that really strikes me, Karl, is, you know, you'd been called to do that, and you're, you know, scared to do it, which is totally normal. But by letting your light shine, by expressing kind of your authentic message, the way you saw it, you reach the people who resonate with you. And in my experience, most people don't resonate with me or you or whatever, but the people who do, that's who we're here to speak to. It's the people who do resonate. And I'm so glad that you're doing that, and so glad to hear about the knock-on effect of that. And what are some of the results you're seeing in sharing this understanding with the guys that you're working with and the teams that you're working with?
So team-wise, in a sporting context, it's I do direct presentation. So I do stuff around mindset with and I call it peak performance. One of the things the principles give you is a model for peak performance, because it's really about flow states and getting into states where you can perform as an athlete. So young guys, when they come in and they join the American football team, they don't often have a model of what a peak performance athlete looks like. Right. So it's important to kind of take them through what it looks like and what it feels like, and give them an experience of that. So I literally run workshops with them where we discuss what peak performance state is, and a lot of the principle comes into that. So it is dropping out of your thinking, very much around being in the moment. It's very much around, you know, when you speak to athletes, they talk about being in the zone. They talk about the fact that it's effortless. They talk about the fact that it feels. One guy actually was amazing. I was asking for examples. Had any athletes experienced some examples? One of the students put his hand up and said he was a swimmer, and he said he'd experienced a state of flow or a zone state, and he said it was like the water got thinner as he was swimming. And I thought that was kind of profound, you know. So when you speak to, most people have had an experience where they've dropped out of their thinking and they've entered these kind of states that we're talking about, that you can be in, you know, a lot of the time in your life. That's what the training is. And so I try and encourage the athletes to think along those levels, and to have that as a place they can always come back to if they get kind of stuck and caught in their heads, or they make a mistake. You know, athletes will come off the field, and if they've made a mistake, you don't want them to dwell on it too long. It's like onto the next thing. And so principles helps in reminding them that they have a reference point to really be, that they can be peaceful, that they have an innate kind of resilience, that they are going to come back to high performance, peak performance states. They just need to ease off themselves and not to worry and be anxious about it. And so that's the work that I do with athletes. And in the men's work, you know, I continue to be blown away by by the speed at which the transformation happens with guys. Like when they see it, they really do see it. I was coaching a guy last week who came in. He was very heavy, and he felt very kind of down. And he was talking about the fact that he was kind of saying that he had this belief that he wasn't good enough, and we kind of explored that a little bit through the coaching. And he was saying that his father had kind of, you know, he blamed his father. Questions about whether, you know, it was his father now that was doing that, or whether it was, you know, how was he carrying that through time? And he had a big kind of shift. And the reason he had the shift is because he kind of laughed. I said back to him, so you're telling me that the belief is you're not good enough? And we had kind of played with that back. And when I repeated it back to him, he started to laugh. And then we both started to laugh. So he was laughing, I was laughing. And then we went from this really heavy place to this really, he kind of had the insight that, right, I'm carrying this. Like, it has nothing to do with my father. It's just me repeating it back to myself again and again. And I don't need to do it. And so we ended up laughing our way through the rest of the session, which was quite cool.
Beautiful.
So you know, that can happen as well. So, you know, it does make a big impact in terms of the coaching that you do.
How does it feel to be having this kind of impact with your clients and with the teams and so on?
It feels quite, I'm often described as a powerful coach. So when I get feedback, people will say, oh, you're so powerful, Karl. You know, when you turn up, you have this powerful presence. And I don't really see that. What I see is that I turn up quite grounded in a way that's, I don't worry too much. So when I don't feel like I'm getting a result, I don't really concern myself too much with that. I don't feel that I need to push too hard. You know, there's a kind of solidness, a groundedness about the work that I do now that I didn't have before, and a kind of confidence that the client will work it out for themselves, or the athlete will work it out for themselves. So before, I was very kind of controlling and tried to control every single aspect of an athlete or a coaching session, and now I just kind of relax into it and trust that they're going to be the ones that come up with the solutions for themselves in the time frame that they need, that it will happen for them. And so that is an important part of how I turn up. And so I don't worry too much if the immediate success is not there, because it's, you know, people come to this stuff in their own pace and time.
Well, there's something kind of paradoxical in that, is that when you have confidence that your client or the sports person or whatever has what it takes and is going to find their own solutions, they pick up on that confidence. Just like if you think that you need to control them, they pick up on that. Like, it's so counterintuitive. It's very, very cool. Karl, if you could kind of go back in time and give a message to that you who wanted to get your message out there and wanted to share this understanding with people, but were feeling kind of, you know, blocked and anxious and that sort of thing, what message would you give to that you?
I think I'd just say relax, you know, relax into it and have the experience that you've got at the time. When I started sharing this stuff, I wasn't very good at it. You know, I don't think I particularly got it very well. And I kind of just continued to share it over time until the point where you see more and more.
And that's the thing I see so often. It's like people, they get touched by this understanding. They go, oh man, I want to share this with people. Why doesn't everyone know this? I want to get this out there. And then they think that it's almost binary, like they need to go from there to being brilliant at it, not realizing it's a journey with stages along the way. And you experiment and you try things out, and you learn. It's a learning journey. And that's, funnily enough, that's what Clarity Pro is all about. Obviously, I'm doing these interviews because we're opening the doors for Clarity Pro. To anyone watching, if you resonate with what Karl and I are talking about, I'd love you to join us in Clarity Pro. Head over to jamiesmart.com /Clarity Pro, and check it out. And if it resonates, I'll see you in there. And Karl, you're going to be joining us for Clarity Live this weekend, which is going to be great. Thank you so much for being with us here today.
You're welcome, Jamie. It's been a privilege. Thanks very much for having me.
Oh, great to have you on, man. And I look forward to seeing you at the weekend. Cheers.
Bye.